When I first saw this, to be honest, I thought it was CGI. Where did the car door go? Did it concertina down or somehow fold underneath the car? Before we get into 1990s disappearing door tech though, let's look at some early examples of disappearing doors. Early automobiles took many parts from coach building, so it was natural that car doors would work the same as those on coaches, or house doors that had been around for thousands of years for that matter. It wasn't until after the Second World War that bubble cars would try something different, maybe taking inspiration from aircraft cockpit covers, and Mercedes-Benz would pioneer gull wing doors on the 300 SL sports car in 1952. These were all very clever, but the first doors that could be said to disappear were attached to the 1954 Kaiser Darrin. Kaiser Motors were financed by Henry J. Kaiser, an American industrialist that had made his fortune in shipbuilding and large civil projects such as the Hoover Dam. He purchased a Ford factory that was no longer needed for World War II production, and by 1948, over 300,000 cars had been produced. The Kaiser Darrin was something of a departure though, being a sports car that had hopes to take on the European onslaught led by Triumph's TR2. The Darrin was full of innovative firsts. It was the first car to be made out of lightweight fiberglass, and it had innovative doors that slid into the front fender wells on aluminium rails. The car was launched in 1952, where it seemed to be in a class of its own, but it would take until 1954 until deliveries started, by which time Chevrolet had released their stylish Corvette. When customers test drove the Kaiser Darrin, they found a car down on power that didn't have great handling. This wasn't a Triumph TR2 killer. To make matters worse, the sliding door mechanism wasn't reliable. Kaiser Motors would fix the problem with nylon roller bushings, but the doors still had problems when dirt or mud found its way into the mechanism. The car was a flop, and a freak snowstorm that destroyed 50 cars being produced in the factory was the last straw. Production ended after just 435 cars were made. For the next 30 years or so, manufacturers went back to regular old tried and tested car doors with the occasional scissor, butterfly, gull wing, or even a canopy thrown in for fun. When sliding doors were used, it was for vans or trucks, and they didn't disappear. BMW took the plunge to create their own sliding, disappearing door when they launched the Z1 in 1989. The high sills allowed for space to retract the short doors along with the windows. Getting in and out though was a bit of a palaver, as you couldn't put your weight on the lower door. You were advised to grab the top of the windscreen, which was also the roll bar, and lower yourself in. Many of the normal buttons and controls on regular doors had to be relocated. Mirrors were attached to the windscreen, and the car door lock was moved to the rear bodywork. The latch to mechanically open the door was found in the footwell. It was technically possible to raise and lower the doors yourself, but with them weighing around 70 kilograms, it wasn't advisable. And yes, you can drive around with the doors open, or should that be down. I'm not sure there's much of an advantage to it though, except maybe for the fun of it. It was all a little odd and funky, but this was BMW pushing the technical boundaries and blue sky thinking to help their mainstream models. After all, the Z in Z1 stood for Zukunft, the German word for future. Although the Z1 would be the first of many successful BMW Z cars, the Z1 wasn't popular. It wasn't cheap either, the equivalent of £93,000 today. Just 8,000 were sold, and production ended after only 2 years. One of the problems with the Z1's design, of course, was the high sill line. Detroit-based Joalto Design came up with what seemed like a better solution. With many car doors being curved, they created a door that would rotate so it slid under the car. They began with a 1/8 scale model and showed the patented design to Detroit's Big Three. Ford showed interest, and Joalto worked with Ghia Coachworks in Italy to adapt a Ford Explorer. The solutions showed promise, so Ford asked Joalto to take this design and use it on the 1993 Lincoln Mark 8. The designers of this car had been concerned about the size and weight of the car's doors. They didn't want the car to have rear doors, but this meant the front doors needed to be long to allow the rear passengers to get in. Joe Alto's design allowed the whole side of the car to disappear, giving rear passengers a much easier time getting in and out. And where it was hard to use the Mark 8's doors in a tight parking spot, Joe Alto's design made it easy. The promotional video made it seem like a very slick idea. Surely this was the future of car doors. But Ford and Lincoln executives passed on the idea. There were questions about how the door would open in extreme cold weather. Regular doors simply needed the catch and lock to be warmed up. This was a much more complex mechanism. More complexity leads to more problems for the customer, especially with new technology. And that complexity also made it more expensive. It was heavy at a time when car companies were looking for any way to save weight on their cars to help improve fuel efficiency. Then there was all that extra safety testing that would be needed to get the new doors certified. And how would doors open in the event of an accident? Joe Alto got some brief interest from Cadillac, but that was about it for this complicated solution. Joe Alto design from Detroit would morph into JTEC LLC of California, and they would continue to push their innovative disappearing doors, offering up sports car and SUV concepts. But with no takers, the company folded. Companies such as Tesla would continue to innovate with alternate door openings, but all have their compromises. The problem of getting in and out of a car in tight parking spaces is being solved with cars that can park themselves. But as far as disappearing car doors go, the tried and tested 2-hinge, 1-catch door descended from stagecoaches has yet to be improved upon. Scissor doors, first seen on the 1968 Alfa Romeo Carrabo concept, rotate straight up. Swan doors seen on cars like the Aston Martin DB9 open out, then up. And suicide doors, which have hinges on the rear and open forwards, are so called because they're seen as being less safe. While travelling at high speeds, it's easier for them to pop open if not closed properly. However, modern suicide door designs have largely fixed these safety problems.